Ladies and gentlemen, we're here at an anti-Shinra protest. These crowds of disgruntled youth have clearly been bought and paid for by Wutai propagandists. Oh, look, here comes a group of them now. Please, young sirs, after the despicable and cowardly bombing of Mako Reactor Number 1, a clear act of terrorism, will you or will you not condemn Avalanche?
Never.
This is
Nothing
a this is
happens
a
in a
very
vacuum.
nuanced issue. I think we need to examine the plot points going back quite a few years to at least have a holistic view of what this means.
Are you suggesting a two-state solution?
Midgar and Wutai coexisting at last. Go back to the pre-war borders. I don't think that can ever happen. Folks,
It's too
it's
late for
Campaign
that.
Comrades. We are talking about Final Fantasy VII, the remake, in anticipation of Final Fantasy Rebirth, coming at you later this month. Actually, coming out on Leap Day, of all things.
Hell yeah.
Matt
It's a
had the
sweet date. It's a sweet release
it
date.
is, and Matt had the greatest idea about it. It's like that they did it purposefully so that like they have at least a 4 year period before anybody starts talking about anniversary updates or anything like that. So just be like, no, you can't talk to us until another leap year. Leave us alone.
I
Genius.
mean, it makes perfect sense to me. There are times I wish I was born on a leap day so that only one birthday every 4 years.
I mean, that would be such an existential quandary, right? It's like you would be, trick yourself into thinking, oh yeah, I only have, a birthday every 4 years. But then every 4 years, like whenever you have your birthday, it's just like, oh my God, the passage of time, it's caught up with me.
Or you just like get to fuck with people on the non-leap year years and just like change which day you're celebrating. Oh, my birthday's March 1st this year. Nope, February 28th. And then you can just really have some mind games going.
Some fun with it. But that idea has a whole lot of weight behind it, I think. Just, going with the production history of this remake, you know, Final Fantasy fans, and we'll talk about their actual reactions to this game and other games as well. That was part of what I wanted to talk about. But
They always
they,
hated
they're
initially.
sickos. They're sickos. Like, and they don't deserve the good things that they get. I mean, most gamers don't.
They're kind of like the opposite of the Marvel fanboy. Like just that where the Marvel
Hate everything
fanboy,
new, and then it
yeah,
becomes amazing in retrospect.
Yeah.
yeah,
Whereas
whereas
Marvel fans love
the
everything new
slop.
and then hate it with retrospect.
Yeah, could never be me. Could never be me. I'm the complete opposite. I've enjoyed every Final Fantasy as soon as it comes out, and of all the ones that I've played, and yeah, Marvel schlock remains Marvel schlock. But fucking
Agreed.
talk and people, people have the so-called fans have been annoying Square Enix for a remake before it was Square Enix, when it was still Square. Uh,
Squaresoft.
they the original Final Fantasy VII, developed by Square prior to the merger, was released for the original PlayStation in 1997. Talk and speculation for a remake started as early as, the 2000s, the early 2000s, when rumors started to swirl about Square making a remake for the PS2 so that it could exist alongside Final Fantasy 8 and 9. And, it made a certain amount of sense then because the PS2 is like, and kind of still remains, one of the best selling consoles ever. So,
and
It is.
and a
get it out there.
huge change in fidelity and like
Right.
graphical ability.
Right.
I
Us,
mean,
us
the
now,
entire first generation of 3D, that entire console generation, like it had a lot of work it had to do in transitioning from a 2D to 3D environment. So there was a lot of experimenting and failing at it, but I mean, that's what happens when you gotta make a huge transition from this is just a top down grid based look at what you're seeing, sprites, easy to program, versus a 3D environment that you have to fully map out and deal with, a Z axis.
Yeah.
Playing the original game recently, earlier this year, um, I'm like so torn on how I felt about those like pre-rendered backgrounds from the original. In some ways, it makes me
PS1 loved
feel
the
yeah, it
pre-rendered
makes me feel very
backgrounds.
nostalgic, and like I find some of those backgrounds to be pretty beautiful and like would make like great posters and like really great artwork. But in terms of actually playing it, oh my God, it was so
What's
frustrating.
interactable?
And say
What am I walking on?
my modern brain, like, just can't figure out like the pathing, just like where I'm actually supposed to be going. What's, because, the sense of depth is so off, and, you can't tell what's one layer, what's another. And yeah, what can be interacted with and what can't be other than like, the materia that you pick up in the world. That one's clear. That's always clear. But yeah, I was always so torn about it. But yeah, fans have been just trying to get this redone since it came out. I've always been like, yeah, because it's been a smash hit. It made Final Fantasy officially as
If I
a
remember correctly,
tentpole
too,
franchise.
it was a 3-discer on the PS1.
Yes, yes.
Wow.
The final
Wow.
disc was basically just the last dungeon. I did
Yeah.
read into that. So nothing happened from those rumors of remaking it for the PS2. There was a resurgence in demand after, and this one Square kind of brought on themselves, right? They did a tech demo for the PS3 at 2005's E3, where they showed a remade version of the opening from Final Fantasy
Yeah.
VII, using
Oops.
to show like their new, what they called, like the Crystal Tools engine. So it's like they asked for that one.
Yeah, totally.
Can't get mad at the fans for expecting something there.
I mean, so
Why
I
would
can
you
I can
do
see
that?
from their perspective,
Because
like I
in
know
their mind, it's
exactly
good
what they were
marketing.
thinking. They were like, people love this. This will be a great little teaser for them. It'll be great. They'll never read too deep into it. It's just a little
Yeah.
tease to show them what we got cooking that we can work with. And fans are like, "Oh my God, this means Final Fantasy VII remake, and it's
Yeah,
here. It's
it
coming.
gives
It's beautiful."
it gives them a touchstone of like, oh my God, I remember what this did look like, and now look how good it is. To
Yeah.
have that frame of reference makes a certain amount of mechanical
Fair
sense.
enough.
Can be like, oh wow, this new engine, look what it's capable of. But then yeah, it was just like, for this game that everybody is such a sicko for already, you know, it's just begging for harassment there. Then you get 2 years later, it's the 10th year anniversary. Square continues to deny that a remake was in development, citing mainly how long it would take to create a remake on modern hardware. An argument
That's
that they
actually my favorite part of this is that throughout its history, they're like, dude, it's going to take us like 20 years to do this.
they're still
And
making
then,
that argument. They're still making
yeah,
that argument.
and then
Recently,
right
it's been
around
about
20
six.
years, and then right around 20 years,
Yeah.
the game came out.
Yeah, but that's the argument they keep making for why they don't have plans to remake Final Fantasy VI.
Yeah.
I've seen a bunch of articles of that within like the last week. They're like,
Yeah.
no, it'll take 20 years. It'll take 20 more years to redo it. And that one makes, not that there's really much beyond, story that they could take from 7. It's not like they're just uprizzing shit.
Yeah,
This
but I
remake
mean,
is a
the jump
full
from
from
7
the
to the 3D
ground
remake
up.
is a little smaller than the jump from 6, a 2D pixel game, to a
Because
full.
even story pacing and stuff would have
Yeah.
to be completely rethought. I mean, granted, they did that again here, but like that core story still exists and is still, more easily translatable to a modern medium, regardless of any of the technical shit. But development on the eventual remake that we all got, was not confirmed until 2015.
That E3 2015 trailer, man. RIP to E3. Pour it out. But
And yeah, so this came
that's
out
where
for the
hope
went to die. Yeah, so this came out for the PS4, led by the internal production team of Business Division 1. I love the Square Enix internal
Yeah,
development
so
names.
weird.
Business Division, Creative What is it? Creative Unit 1 and 2. There's a word in
creative
there.
writing unit.
Is that what it is? Yeah, it's their. I love them.
Or
Is
no,
it
it might be creative team.
Yeah, is that a translation thing that doesn't quite jive, or is it truly just is it that in Japanese as well?
You see, the actual Japanese is much worse. It's Creative Slave Unit 1.
Cancel.
So this came out in 2021, right? That's actually one bit of information
No,
I didn't put down.
2020.
2020,
2020.
okay.
It was the end of March 2020 because it happened right when I got furloughed, and it was my like safety blanket pacifier for a month.
Yeah, I mean, and everybody basically was
You
doing
were
that. It was
sorted
like
into
right in
three
the height
houses back
of COVID.
then:
Yeah.
Animal Crossing, Final Fantasy, or you became a real deep dark web diver.
Was one thing that was very cool, and I was like looking into the production of this, and this remake saw a return of a majority of like the core key developers, and they were all kind of, they all still work together on, different Square Enix projects at the time, but they all kind of like came together basically and were like, we're getting up there in age, and they're like, this is something that we wanted to do. The fans obviously want, and it's like we're of a certain age that if we don't do it now, we'll probably be dead if we wait any longer
They
with
walked
how
in, and he's
long it
like, "You
was
son
going
of a
to take.
bitch, I'm in. I'm putting
Yeah,
together a
so
game."
assembling a team. One last job.
So it saw the return of several key developers from the original. Character designer and original story writer Tetsuya Nomura was
The
tasked as
goat.
director. Uh, yeah, he was involved with this project from the start, but this is a funny bit. He only discovered that he was the director after seeing himself credited in an internal company presentation video. Because
Nice.
he assumed that it would go back to Yoshinori
You,
Kitase, the original director and writer, but who took on a producer role for the remake. He just assumed that Kitase would reprise the role as director. And we got writer and event planner Kazushige Nojima as story and scenario writer, event planner Motomo Toriyama as co-director, and not taking on a full role, but composer Nobuo Uematsu returned to write the main theme for the remake. So, it was truly like getting the band back together
yeah,
type of thing. So that was cool to
one
see.
one more heist.
Uh,
We're
I
gonna
think
make $1 billion.
I think that's why this game is still so well done from like a tonal perspective. Just
Mhm.
with how much they've added and just having it all still
Because you still have the original vision putting it
right.
together.
Well, because
And
a lot of the things that you see is they're like, this is shit we wish we were able to do
right. Yeah. They had it, they
beforehand.
probably had it like as, this is happening. We're just not showing it. Like stuff like just kind of notes. I'm sure that's part of
I
it.
have this somewhere, and it's like it's about one of the themes where one of the main themes of the game being, economic inequality. They were able to strengthen this theme in the remake by being able to show stuff in the upper plate, which they said was basically all off limits and inaccessible in the original, but it, allows the player now to see the contrast between the kind of middle class, more
Yeah,
modern
like a suburban.
suburban life of the upper plate contrasted with the squalor of the lower slums, which was all we had really ever seen. And we were just, told about the plate. The only thing you really have in the upper plate is Shinra headquarters. That's basically all you really have access to in the original game. So it's things like that where it allowed them to, yeah, these are ideas that had been kind of core to the original story, but they're now able to flesh out and show in more detail, both from technical capabilities as well as what they decided to do with expanding it into multiple releases. Because they
Yeah, I
saw
mean, they
these.
expanded roughly. I mean, it depends on the pace you play and your knowledge. Probably 4 to 6 hours is what I would call a safe.
I think they said somewhere around like they call it, or it's around 7 to 8 hours. For me,
Yeah,
playing on 3 times speed, I left Midgar within like 4 hours.
yeah. So let's just say, yeah, They expanded 8 hours into 30 to 40 hours of gameplay without it feeling too immediately bloated or like packed on, you know.
Yeah, I think they made the right choice. They, saw that they had, two potential paths forward. Expand upon the original with multiple releases, or try to include the entire scope of the original game in a single release. They tried to investigate, what were these essential parts of the original that, fans absolutely had to see. But they, quickly decided that there were so many parts that were essential that, there would just be fan riots if they cut any of this content.
It would be a fucking 300 gigabyte game.
Yeah. And particularly, it would have melted the PS4.
Yeah. I mean, the
Yeah.
remake as is definitely had my PS4 Slim.
Yeah, that's a PS4 Pro game,
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like when I played it on my PS5 to play the DLC, I was like, oh wow, this game runs so much better on a device that isn't actively in thermal throttle death.
So they decided to go the route of, expanding on things to provide the highest level of depth possible. And I know Matt and I are now the only ones who have played the original. So I'll give it to you first, Matt. How were they, successful in this expansion? What were your opinions on this expanded content? Not mechanics, kind of purely
I mean,
story.
there's a lot of, I mean, overarching big character interactions that you get to spend more time with and get to develop more relationship with that you don't necessarily get when you're playing the original. There's voice acting and stuff, and that's a whole different
Sure.
like layer to it. Like for a lot of people, that just makes it more immersive immediately rather than reading it, and making the voices in your head,
Mm-hmm. Yeah, doing it in internal racism as I try to read Barrett's voice. Just don't do it. Don't do it. Telling the little voice inside my head, yeah, don't do
but
it.
it's actually the little interactions. It's not your interactions with your party. It's the interactions as you're running by like groups of people. You can hear them talking to each other, and like the little bits of interaction you get. Say returning from the Mako reactor, hearing everyone's reaction to what has happened there. Running over to the job board or whatever. And getting that small interaction with that guy there. They flesh a lot of that out, and then like you said, with you get the upper plate, which gets to add more depth to your understanding of the inequalities going on. So I mean, overall, I'd say they did a very good job expanding on the themes of what was there and embracing more without making it feel like, oh yeah, they took 5 hours of game, turned it into 40. There's a shitload of mini games that you have to play everywhere you go.
There are a shit ton of mini games in the original, so like get the fuck out of here with that argument. We're gonna get to that section in Rebirth. There's an entire area. It's basically a casino, and it's just all mini games. That's what it is. That's its point.
Naturally.
I like Andrew's assessment that, this may have been a lot of content that they had notes on that was going on in the background when they were fleshing out their narrative, had more backstory for certain characters that, have a bigger role in the remake. So like it does feel
Jesse
more
being one
organic. Yeah, Jesse, my girl. It
Yeah,
feels more
the whole
organic in that
Avalanche
way and
crew.
not ham fist.
Yeah.
The
You know,
whole
it's not like a
Avalanche crew,
ham-fisted
the
thing.
whole Avalanche crew, don't really have any personality and really any real major influence on the story in the original, where they have this, you know, well done expanded role where they've got motivations and goals that, yes, they still largely serve the purpose of propelling Cloud's journey.
Mhm.
I must protect Wedge at all costs.
Yeah, and we're we can't really tiptoe around some certain story spoilers because I know Andrew and Mike were not able to fully complete the game
That's fine.
in
We
time.
could spoil.
Say, Andrew, you were texting us beforehand. You were running a little bit late because you hit a pivotal point. Just want what how far have you guys gotten?
Yeah, so I'm pretty close to finishing chapter 12. So I'm past like the 3/4 mark, I would say.
Yeah, you've made
Um,
significant progress since your last
yeah.
check in.
Listen, I don't want to pat myself on the back too hard, but like pretty heroic effort yesterday. I probably played about, I would say I think I put in over 10 hours yesterday, which for me is
Nice,
like
nice.
that is a
So I need
marathon
to ask you
equivalent
something
of
as
More than I
gaming.
as a
this more than
friend.
I do. It's more than I
Yeah.
do.
I need to ask you something as a friend. Were you doing it because I need to speed run the game for the podcast, or were you doing it because you need to know?
No, I was enjoying it. It
Okay.
was,
That's
it
all.
was I played way longer than I would have if it were not for recording, but I wasn't playing at like a jumping anything. Like I wasn't skipping side quests, I wasn't skipping cutscenes. I
Yeah.
was just playing the game.
So
So
I'll say, yeah, Mike, you first, and then I want to know the specific story point that you got to.
Yeah.
so I my on my playthrough got to where we left off in stream, like my actual playthrough. I didn't get to play more after that, but I watched like 2 hours of Andrew's yesterday morning, where
Yeah.
he caught up to me, and then we got a little bit past. Like Aerith finally unlocked her powers. What was it, like chapter 9 or something? 8, 9.
Was it
Yeah, I
the
think
was that the train graveyard?
yeah, Mike was I think I had just started the train graveyard when Mike left.
Brain
Yeah.
Graveyard is like just borderline on the levels of I'm okay doing like playing that by myself at
Uh,
night.
no,
Spooky level.
actually no, that's wrong. Mike left right after I got to uh Walmart.
Yes. Yeah.
Ah, okay. Okay.
That's one.
You're into the Don's territory now.
Yeah, exact. That was exactly one. Um, and then yeah, so I'm currently ascending the pillar as the Shinra animals try to destroy it and kill a
Yep.
whole bunch of people, and
Yep.
literally just saved after watching. Sorry, Mike. Jesse succumb to her injuries and
Oh,
die.
so I also did watch just cutscenes yesterday on the train ride home, and I got into that part of
Mm,
Jesse,
They
and
do.
it
So
was that.
they now both know. So like folks at
Yeah.
home
Yeah.
obviously aren't privy to our group chats, but like for like the month or so leading up to it, Mike has just been simping so hard for Jesse, and
I
understandably,
agree with
we
him
love
in the fact
Jesse.
that that is my
We
also
love
preference,
we
but
love Jesse. We are Jesse supporters in this house. But like, so
yeah,
after a
both of
while,
us.
I would just sent him the memes. It's like, does he know? Does he know? And he did not. But now you both know.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so
Exactly.
that why I wanted to ask you guys that is because that's yes, getting back to the discussion of the expansion of that group of characters, the Avalanche crew, they still largely serve Cloud's character development in that sense, but they're the
Mhm.
first part, and not the only bit, but they're the first part about where you see this transition in Cloud, where he's not just the kind of aloof mercenary. He's never truly just been that because he has this internal confusion with the brain pain and all this stuff going on. He's got
I mean,
answers that he's
the
trying
brain
to,
pain is what makes him autistic coded.
yeah, but it's like externally to everybody else, he's this detached mercenary. He's only in it for the money. But when
Yeah.
he's when
Everyone
he's
sees him detached and just in it for the money, but in his mind, he's just staring off and looking at how that window is uneven to the other windows on the building.
but like when you see Jesse, when he sees Jesse and Biggs die after the plate comes down, his eyes are truly opened to like, the evil of Shinra and the threat that's posed. And it doesn't stop there. It's not just because of these friends. It's these scenes afterwards, and this is kind of goes to a point that Matt was talking about, like the expansion of the general world and seeing even these unnamed NPCs get get this kind of treatment. Seeing the impact on for them, like that there are real people at stake here for them now. And it serves as this kind of inflection point for Cloud where he becomes a true believer. He's in it for the cause now, which is a significant part of the story. And I think it's that's not something
I
that's
think
that's
part of
as
that is
clear in
also
the
his
original.
interactions with Aerith. I think
Right.
Aerith
Yeah.
helped a lot in humanizing Cloud and like waking him up to, being more than just a hired sword.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And that's true in the original as well. But like you see the change in him more clearly in the remake than you do in the
Yes.
original.
And
That's
But
that's
every
served
time
purely by what they've
Aerith's
expanded.
piano key happens,
Yeah.
you're about to get some like
You're about to get punched in the gut, yeah.
yeah.
I will add there's two things that I think are funny that I did just want to point out. And one was that in that scene, Biggs has a somewhat emotional death. And I think I will say Biggs and Wedge, I think, are as far as I've played, the weakest in having more point than to just advance Cloud's story. Like I think the rest of the characters
How
are
can
a
you
little bit
say
more
that when
flushed
he
out.
held those cats and wanted to keep them alive?
Yeah,
Yeah,
fair
no,
enough.
Biggs
Yeah.
is definitely the weakest, no doubt
Biggs is the
about it.
weakest for sure.
For sure.
Like you don't get much. But I did
I'll
find
agree
it
with you there.
funny that Tifa runs up to Cloud and doesn't even mention seeing Biggs's corpse, which she, would
Yeah,
have
they've been friends for a long time.
theoretically
Yeah.
seen. So I did kind of find that funny. But yes,
I mean,
I think
Tifa's been through some trauma herself too. Maybe dead bodies don't even register.
yeah, but
She's gotta block that shit out.
blinders, yeah, which fair enough. Um, but they do a good job of humanizing Cloud in starting with the Aerith interaction. I agree with.
Yeah, they say like in terms of some character changes they make for Cloud, they say that, rather than the quote cool and collected Cloud as seen in the original game, the remake depicts his apathetic attitude as a facade to mask his insecurities. And that's something that is definitely present in the first game, but doesn't really truly
Yeah.
emerge until
And
much later.
they bring that out a lot because
Very
that's
early.
you get that from Crisis Core a little bit with the little bits of Cloud towards the end.
And it's those, that's a more modern telling of those are the bits that I'm alluding to from the original game, Matt. I don't know if you remember the bit it's like really towards the end when Cloud kind of goes catatonic and Tifa's got to go into his brain space and
Yeah.
they start like fully uncovering the truth, and there are these multiple parts of Cloud that he's kind of got to come to terms with. That's when you
Spoiler parts of Cloud or Zack.
yeah, you don't really see all those things until much later in the original game. So that's something that, again, I think overall all the characters, their characterization is much more developed and nuanced in the remake, so it's, I think successful there.
Wait, quick question: is Zach Aerith's first boyfriend that she references?
Correct.
Yes.
Okay.
He's the true
The original
soldier first
wielder of the
class.
Buster Sword.
Yeah.
Okay.
That incorrect. The second
Oh,
ori-
shut
the
up,
second
Angel.
original.
Angel!
Angel, no. His name is one letter away from Angel.
That's how you know he's the good guy, and his wings
Uh-huh.
are white.
Yeah, so yeah, but yeah, he inherited the Buster Sword in that lineage. Yeah, so what are
Angel
your
didn't even fucking use the sword. He
did a couple times, I think, in
Yeah, like
cutscenes.
3 times. He was like, "Yeah, the sword doesn't get tarnished by
It's a
using it."
it's a symbol of his soldier honor. So Matt, again, being as the only one, having played both as well, what's your take on like the specters, the the symbols of fate?
I don't necessarily know if I have a take. Would be how I would describe them. I find how they're used in the remake interesting as a means of differentiating what's happening and breaking from fate, as one would say.
Yeah, is it a spoiler for them to really kind of explain what those are? Is that really a big deal, you think?
I don't mind
I mean,
spoilers.
Let's hear it.
I mean, yeah, they basically they show up when things are diverging. when things are not going the way they did in the original. It's when or when characters are trying to fight fate, when they are and are sometimes successful, but it's like when there are these inflection points. I kind of keep using that term, but it's when these points in the story where things could diverge dramatically, they pop in to try to keep things on track.
That's
And
cool.
there's going to be tension there throughout, and we'll wait till we get to either a discussion of the ending to see how that plays out. And it doesn't really kind of come to any type of culmination until the end of the game, where I think you fight a big one and it's like literally named something of fate or whatever. I forget.
You fight 3, and then they form a Voltron, and
Mhm.
then.
So Ben, I do have a question. In your research, did you see what was like the original response to the announcement that they were extending this into multiple games? Because I don't know how I'd feel as a fan.
I say
I can tell you.
Matt knows more than I do probably in that regard, but I would say probably the best you could probably say would be skeptical.
Okay. Yeah.
So the original skepticism came from the fact that fans of Square Enix know how they work and know that when they were like, "Oh, we're breaking this into chunks," the immediate thought everyone had was 5. And that you weren't going to see a full completion of this story for 20 plus years.
As each one had like a 4 to 5 year development cycle.
Yeah.
But I mean, I don't know. Why do you think they kind of focused on 5, whereas it makes sense? And even though the breaks aren't going to probably be at the same spot, or I know that they're not actually, because where Rebirth is going to end is where the actual first disc of the original game. But it's like, yeah, it makes a certain amount of sense. There were 3 discs in the original. Let's split it into 3 games.
Again, it comes from the skepticism from the people who've known how they work, and the Kingdom Hearts fans who've watched a story of 3 games get broken into segments of 1.2, 1.5, 1.8, 1.7 final remix.
Okay.
But the skepticism shifted when it was told it was just 3 and that it was just a trilogy, because all of a sudden, the idea of, having potentially the full story in 10 years became possible again, became more tangible.
Mm-hmm.
And then the skepticism shifted even further away when Rebirth was announced to be, what was, I think the first announcement was 2 years ago, if I'm not mistaken. So only 2 years after the first one had come out, we got a teaser trailer. And now, we're slightly under 4-year release to get the second. So you're potentially looking at the final installment of this trilogy being either a console generation gap bridger, like PS5, PS6, or a PS6 launch title type window.
Yeah.
And I say PS6 because these games aren't on Xbox.
Yeah, never would.
Got them.
I mean, they are on PC now.
Yeah. They were on Epic for a long time before they got to regular
well,
PC.
And that's because actually I read that in my little bit of research it's because it's done in Unreal. It's done in Unreal 4. They had like a partnership with Epic and worked for a good part of its early production. They worked kind of hand in hand with Epic Japan. Eventually turned more internal after several years, but they had a lot of kind of partnerships to get rather than building a new engine from the ground up, they kind of mishmashed a bunch of them. They had the base was Unreal Engine 4. They had like a couple different lighting engines, some AI stuff for speech for AI is probably incorrect. They called it an algorithm to
machine learning
to match mouth movements for all languages, which is pretty cool. Yeah, because even with this one being, so recent, Final Fantasy 16 was the first Final Fantasy game to have its animation tied to the English voice acting versus it being a dub.
Based. No.
I mean, there's like layers to why for that one in particular. It was like,
I mean, it's because it's so Western.
They wanted it to be Game
coded.
of Thrones.
Yeah, it's Western
so
coded.
Western inspired.
It's the Game of Thrones ification of it all. So I want to keep things moving, and this is stuff that I know that all four of us can talk to now. They talked about, I mean, there's bits going back about, between the original and the remake, but then you guys can also just talk about your experience with the mechanics of the game itself. But from the developers, the overarching goal of the production was to make the game feel both new and nostalgic. So with that in mind, for the combat system and the kind of the RPG mechanics, they sought to retain all of those gameplay features that were popular from the original, say like the active time battles, the limit breaks, the materia, like basically how materia works is a little bit different there. But then merging it with the action-based combat system. So yeah, what was everybody's thoughts on the combat, the gameplay, and then for Matt, and I can speak to as well how it stands up to the original.
I'm gonna jump out first just because this was my first Final Fantasy game.
So it was mine as well. It was actually mine as well.
Well, but I mean, you've played more since, so this is my first and only.
No, but it was still a unique experience.
He's just making the point that this
was
for a lot of
first.
people, this is their first intro to Final Fantasy.
Got it. And so I enjoyed that, you had the command menu, but we were discussing on stream, I had
You did the shortcuts.
Yeah,
to keep it fully kind of action.
Which I enjoyed that you have that option, because like there were some times where I wanted to pause, take the time and like think of it, but other times where I knew I could just button mash my hotkeys and get what I need to do done. But yeah, so I enjoyed it. It was a much more, I think, thoughtful combat system, even though it's still kind of a hack and slash, than your typical, than your fucking Assassin's Creed or other RPGs. So I enjoyed it, and I honestly will be playing. I will be finishing it when I get my PS5, and I'll be playing more Final Fantasy games for sure. I've become a based Final Fantasy squarehead.
Hell yes. This was the start of me getting square pilled.
Yeah, I'm square pilled.
This was absolutely part of that journey for me.
So I'm not fully square pilled, but this is my second Final Fantasy full experience, I'd say, after 16. And I think this combat system has a lot of really good, it really combines that kind of turn-based feel with a hack and slash style in a really great way that I think is not only entertaining, but challenges you more than just basic hack and slash type of combat systems do. I will say I have two gripes, and I'm interested if anyone agrees. One is the hitboxes. I find them a little frustrating.
For you or enemies?
Primarily Cloud. Dodging, I feel like I dodge so many more attacks than I actually dodge.
There are no iframes in the dodge.
It's not even iframes. It's like I was next to where they were swinging and dodge, but still get damage, I feel like. So that frustrates me slightly. The other is the prompt buttons. the triangle prompt buttons,
Yes,
I
agree.
frequently takes me like 15 seconds to actually line up, and that just becomes a slight annoyance. But besides those two things,
Could you wait? Could you? I'm not like remembering. Are they like quick
so
time events? What do
no,
you?
like opening doors, turning on levers. Often, like the NPCs will
Ah,
be in
right,
the
right, right, right,
way,
right,
and
right,
it
right,
like
right,
it
right, right.
just it's like just a
Not
minor
fun.
frustration that doesn't take away from this
Yeah,
being a good game, but
there's a
it
little
does
bit.
frustrate
I
me.
definitely would agree with that point that there's a tiny little bit of clunkiness in terms of
Yeah,
Mhm.
the interactions and the when you gotta make sure you're lined up the right way to do the jump interaction rather than there being a jump button or something like that. So yeah, I totally agree. It didn't bother me that enough for me to really file that away. But as you bring it back up, I'm like, yeah, I remember that being a little bit wonky, but yeah, I didn't find it to be that even like over successive amount of time, to be like, oh fuck, another fucking doorway that won't open or something like that.
yeah,
It
it's
was minor
minor.
enough. It was minor enough that
Yeah,
it didn't bother me. I didn't really have
it
the
was just
issue
weird
with the
for us.
hitboxes because yeah, you're going to take a lot of damage, but it's because you've got quite a robust uh, uh, capability of healing, and
Yeah.
it was just became more of the tactical element of it. Just yeah, it's like realizing yeah, you're going to take a decent amount of damage, but your health is pretty forgiving, and your ability to just kind of pop potions and have enough people with cure, and once you have you're able to either get the materia. I think it's its own materia that when
Speaking
you
of restoratives, like you're not playing on hard mode, casual.
because yeah, do you not what do you not get something? Do you not get
In
something on
in
hard
in
mode?
hard mode, you can't use items and you can't sit at benches to
Huh.
restore.
Oh.
Yeah, that's brutal. That last bit's brutal.
Yeah,
No, I that's kind of what I've come to accept is this is more a battle of attrition type game than a,
Yeah, more or
avoid
less.
getting damage. Like it's
Yeah,
more
mm,
managing your resources than anything else, which ties back to an
You
original
you
more
can avoid a
turn-based.
lot of damage, but there's a lot of stuff.
you kind of just
Um,
can't.
Yeah.
yeah, it's like blocking is really only good for gunfire, and even then, you're still going to get chip damage from that.
Yep.
Yeah, so that's kind of yeah. I would agree that it's yeah, kind of changing your expectations for it.
Mhm.
Um, I think this combat system is so much better than the original. It's so much more fun, and it's even more tactical in my opinion. Um, because I
I
found
mean,
it,
you can play this game in a pretty much fully turn-based
yeah. What do
mode.
they
If I
call
remember
it?
correctly,
There's
you
like a
can turn it into
classic.
classic mode or
Yeah,
whatever it's
I
called.
never experimented with that. I don't exactly even remember how that works. But like uh even like there's the tactical nature of the basic hack and slash stuff, like using their well, let's call it like their core ability, what's key to the triangle thing is always cool. Like with Cloud, knowing when to go into Punisher mode and dodge away, and then back to Punisher, do a combo. And then yeah, the I never did the hotkeys as you were saying, Mike. Like I became fast enough on the turn things that it was like almost the same amount of time spent.
yep.
Um, but it gives you that little bit of wiggle room and again your ability to be tactical in what
I
you're
definitely had
choosing.
both. I definitely had like cure on a hotkey so that I didn't
Yeah.
have to fumble around to use cure.
I primarily find myself using the hotkeys on like the smaller enemies that you're just taking on as you traverse the level, and then don't
Mhm.
use them nearly as much in the boss fights.
Boss fights are definitely aided by the ability to go into the command menu and
Yeah.
chill shit out for a second.
And you just like you get into this flow state that is way better. I'm, comparing it to Final Fantasy 16 because that's kind of the most recent point of comparison I have. Um, where we were talking about this, I think, on stream.
Hmm.
Folks, go check us out at twitch.tv/campaign comrades. or the flow state of Fantasy 16 just became repetitive and easy. You
Yes.
had this pattern of
It gets
attacks that you would
rote.
do. Whereas this, it's like you're getting in, you are, you're seeing the matrix code, but like you're still, it's like I'm switching to this character right now to do this. I'm doing this character ability to tie into this one and combo with this one. And man, I think it's going to be even better in Rebirth with the synergy abilities that we've seen with
Yeah.
the different party members,
Oh,
There's
getting
cool.
a
a
point
kind
of
of
view, you're fighting Hell House and you went in with no elemental materia.
dude. Hell House is probably one of the tougher fights. It's a
It's a
fun one though.
challenge.
It's a fun
It's a
one though.
long one.
But yeah, like I found this combat system so much more rewarding than the original, because the original, with maybe a slight exception in some boss fights, it was largely that same pattern. You're just getting into patterns again. It would be like attack, attack, attack,
Yeah.
heal. Like, you have two people attack, and whoever's healing casts cure, and hopefully does cure all on everybody, or regen, or you put up a barrier, put up a regen, and everybody attacks till those go away, and
I'd say
and it's
even
just
even watching
became.
you in the combat of the original, it looked like you were just essentially like doing patterns just over and over.
And it kind of became boring again. And it's just basically, so long as you're an appropriate level, um you're just, yeah, you can just kind of fall into that pattern. And when a limit break pops up, you do the limit break. And it's very rarely does it change, and particularly when it's just your regular kind of mobs, it's just attack, 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 cure there, attack, 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 cure, and no real strategy involved. Like, I was like reading into, people are like, oh yeah, like I spent like hours grinding out materia levels and limit break levels and all this. So I'm like, you don't need to. There is literally no need to do that in the original. So whereas like I loved the intentionality of this combat, and it was a beautiful merging of action and turn based. So I'm definitely in a remake better. I definitely checked that box for myself. Next thing I had here was like we kind of talked a little bit on a bunch of the story changes. The expanded roles of things like the Avalanche crew, those specters. Um, One thing we didn't talk about is the probably one of the biggest changes is this kind of overall looming presence of Sephiroth through this early stage of the game, and that eventually culminates at the end fight with the escape from Midgar, which he basically doesn't make an appearance at that stage of the game in the original, right? He like, I don't even know that we get cut a flashback, a brain pain flashback at that point in the game. But like, I was reading this as well. The producers were like, this game is so iconic. Sephiroth is such an iconic villain at that point. They couldn't
They
not
basically just
include
wanted to
him.
use him.
It's like they
Yeah.
couldn't not. It would be, people would just be like, where the fuck is our beautiful boy Sephiroth?
Yeah, that would be riots if the whole first game of the remake they released didn't have Sephiroth.
What are your guys' views on him as a villain? I say he's got interesting motivations that remain kind of mysterious throughout
Yeah,
the first
yeah. At
game.
this point, I just feel like I know too little
Yeah.
about his motivation, and I don't know the connection. I've never actually like I've not spoiled this plot line for myself actually.
Oh, so he
Um,
really doesn't know.
so yeah, I have
I
I
don't
have
either.
ideas. Part of me thinks maybe it's like Cloud's conceptualization of what he did as a soldier. I don't know, but um, yeah, I don't know enough to really speak. I find him to be compelling. I want to know, and I'm interested in what their relationship really is and what that boils down to for this larger story. But
I will admit, having played now the original, the remake, Crisis Core, I'm still a little foggy at times on the
Okay.
timeline of things, because there's a lot of memories are twisted, personalities are combined, conjoined,
See,
torn
it all
apart.
started
It's
with Genesis.
he
You
was
think
the
I'm
he
making
was the first, right? Yeah, he was the
yeah,
first, right? Yeah, yeah.
yeah. You think I'm making a Bible joke there, but I'm not.
No.
Um, yeah, so like they give his characters some more stuff to work with, so that was cool. We talked on like
His motivations from Crisis Core are pretty straightforward.
yeah his so there are other character changes. We talked about Cloud being kind of deepened and seeing a little bit more into his confusion, his insecurities through his interactions with these other characters. Other ones that kind of stick out are, Tifa's desire for revenge against Shinra. Can't even read my own notes. Against Shinra
It has good reason.
is complicated by her, her reluctance to enact violence. It's like she's given more.
That's why
She's
we like
kind of
Jesse.
yeah. She's the doubter of the group, and it leads to some very interesting moments. And one that's my probably standout moment of the game is an interaction between her and Barrett. And speaking of Barrett, like his changes, I think are some of the best served. He still retains a lot of his personality and characterization from the
Yeah,
original.
they still kept the Mr. T-esque persona, but they
Yes,
they gave him a lot more depth to his ideology than just
just yeah, because he's a bit of a caricature, and his leadership role and his influence on the other party members is way more prominent than it is in the original, where it's largely kind of played as a joke. They like so many times they're like when the party has kind of really formed, he's like, well, I'm the leader, right? And everyone's just like, no, it's Cloud, he's the main character. It's played as a joke in that time, whereas he's truly the ideological core of this group, and
his train speech,
his train speech is good, and the one that I will bring up specifically later
the
on
elevator speech,
is the elevator speech in chapter 16. um oh
which you
so
can entirely miss if you decide to take the stairs.
yeah, I'd say
And
definitely take the
instead of a
Uh,
heartfelt emotional speech by Barrett,
it's
you
just
get
funny.
out of breath, winded, complaining about taking 60 flights of stairs.
Yes, yeah, so I would definitely recommend doing the elevator when you get
And
the
the
chance
game
to do
actually
it.
slows you down too. As you get farther up the stairs, you stop being able to run as quickly.
no, thank you.
One really cool thing I saw is that the devs in making the remake were specifically anti-shipping wars between Aerith and Tifa. They're like, we're gonna make them both, co-heroes. Like one is not more relevant than the other, given more time. So like, yeah, and they've talked about that as well in some recent media.
Cloud's voice actor has been pretty anti-shipping,
Yeah.
but he also has
Impo-
experience with the Teen Wolf shipping drama.
Impossible to not.
And then there's also another change is the inclusion of the intermission DLC where Yuffie comes to Midgar and fights Underground, which Underground was itself part of like wasn't that like an expansion for the original
Yeah.
game? Because I never came across Underground in my playthrough of the original.
The only real Final Fantasy VII game media now that hasn't been modernified, Moderna, that's right, uh, is Dirge of Cerberus. So that's the one that expands what will be Matthew Mercer's Vincent
Oh,
Valentine.
Vincent, yeah.
So it'd be interesting to see if bridging the gap between Rebirth and the third one, we're gonna get a Dirge of Cerberus reunion type remaster.
Well, there might be a deal. It might be the DLC for this one because it's kind of like Yuffie kind of served that
Yeah,
role in the original. Um, All right, so I just have a few little data points here, and then I want to like kind of talk about the themes and like our top moments from the game. So this is one of the fastest selling PS4 games, selling 3.5 million units within the first 3 days. It has gone to
Which
sell
is
over.
really crazy to like contextualize again. Sorry to interrupt.
That's fine.
When you consider the fact that Pokemon Scarlet and Violet was 10 million units in its first weekend.
Yeah,
Oh,
Jesus Christ.
God.
It has sold over 7 million units as of September 2023. It averaged around high 80s to low 90s in critic reviews, and fan reaction, I'd say, was polarized.
Yeah. Just like every time there's a new Final Fantasy game that comes out, the fans go, "Oh no, they changed thing. I like old thing better." And then you look at them, wait, you hated old thing when it came out. It's like, well, old thing is cool now because it's better than new thing.
Yeah, everything's
It's
better in
just a
hindsight.
forever
much.
cycle. It happened with Final Fantasy 16 where they were like, "Oh, Final Fantasy 15's combat was better." And it's like, "You hated Final Fantasy 15's combat. Hated it."
It's hard to be a fan, okay?
It is.
I mean, I understand as a habitual hater, like as one of the player hater club members of the month, like hating is easy. I get it. It's in our blood.
All right, so I now want to like turn to a discussion of the game's themes, and you could probably boil it down to three major themes. We've already talked about one. So there's
Destroying the planet for energy is good. Being wealthy enough to live on the upper plate is better.
and we should all strive to work for the company. Should all be company men. Get paid in
Shinra
company
allows you to
script.
live on the upper plate. So
Shinra has your best interest at heart.
Yeah, yeah. So it's economic inequality.
So do you condemn Shinra?
Oh, for sure, condemn Shinra.
Absolutely. Yeah. So the themes are economic inequality, as we've already kind of discussed. Corporate monopoly, and environmentalism. So yeah, we've talked about economic inequality, and I think this is one of the ones that has been strengthened the most from the remake. This ability to see the differences in, put the slums in their appropriate context to see how life is different um in the upper and lower plates, like kind of, modernized, city living to, yeah, absolute squalor and shanty towns down below.
You see, the thing though that they did, and I mean not that it like romanticizes it in any way, shape, or form, but like the people in the slums were still happy. Like you still found people like living their life and trying to have, their
There
family and work.
there were
There's
pockets of there were yeah pockets of hope there.
Of community would be the better term.
Yeah, like those, like the schools near Aerith, that she, like, was a part of, that you get to later on. You are interacting with that bit of the community. Yeah, there's maybe the seedy bit of the of yeah of the yeah do they call it Walmart? Is it
Walmart,
No.
I
Oh, it's
think.
Walmart.
Yeah,
Walmart, but
Walmart.
yeah. So I know it's Wall something, but yeah, let's call
No,
it
he
Walmart.
called it Walmart and I let it slide because like, yeah, no
Yeah,
wrong.
yeah, it's the bit.
It is.
But
Like if the Waltons had their way, they would absolutely have a Walmart that functioned as its own Las Vegas.
its own little
Yeah.
fiefdom where they don't pay taxes. But like even in there, like the gym that you go to, seeing all the buff
Yeah.
ladies and gentlemen, very wholesome.
Yes.
And
Doing the squat fucking mini game.
which is present in the original as well. I was absolutely flabbergasted when I saw that in the original.
Hell yeah.
It's in Crisis Core too.
I mean, well, yeah. When is Zach not doing squats?
Because Zach is a himbo and he brings that energy.
He absolutely is. He's our beautiful dumb boy. We love him.
If Cloud is our autistic and
Point.
semi unaware that people love him type,
Mm-hmm.
Zach is the exact opposite, where his himbo energy just makes everyone want to fuck him.
And he knows it. Okay, so yeah, so then the anti-corporate ideology is, quite clear. Shinra is evil. Even in the upper city, how fucking dark it is.
Mhm.
There's basically no fucking sunlight. It's just, it's very bleak. And that ties into the environmentalism of it as well. It's because they're leaching the Mako from the world around them, that is just this like decayed, dead sector where it's like that one patch of Aerith's flowers in the church are like the only growing things in Midgar.
Mhm.
I'd like to point out a continuity error where Aerith is selling her flowers. I don't see the 3 carts I made her with Zach. Where'd the flower carts go, Aerith? You lose Zach for a couple years and you throw away the flower carts.
She pawned them, yeah.
I think another thing that Matt was speaking to a little bit is that comparing the community that you do feel in the slums to this, what is effectively pretty empty areas when you're in the upper, what's it called? Upper tier,
Just the plates.
upper plate. Yeah, the upper
Yeah.
plates.
I mean, when we're in the upper plate, it's nighttime and everyone's in their suburban home with the doors locked, curtains drawn, watching TV.
yeah, exactly.
At night down in the slums, people are out experiencing community together. And
Beautiful.
yeah.
So what are our thoughts on Shinra, on the Shinra Electric Corporation? Who is the best villain of the group? Because it's a rogues gallery
So
up in there.
I love Heidegger's vibes. I gotta
In the
say
name.
he's got my heart. The president's close, but
I don't remember the lady scientist,
I like Heidegger.
her name.
Oh,
She's probably the most.
it's on the tip of my tongue.
Yeah.
But she's the most cartoonish of them all.
She's the most comically evil, but for me, Hojo is the most like diabolically evil.
Yeah, and like, yeah, I don't know.
Especially given context with Crisis Core and
Heidegger is probably my favorite. Um, he's I made this point, I think, on somebody's stream a while back, probably one of Andrew's, that like it's a change they made from him. He seems more competent in the
Mhm.
remake and more threatening than he is
yeah.
in the. He's pretty much he's pretty much just a stooge in the original. And I think just, yeah, all of them are largely, more menacing, and they've turned the villainy up a notch in the remake. Scarlet, that's her name. I knew it was a
Yeah.
color, and because she's
Yeah.
wearing a scarlet dress.
Yes.
I knew it was a color, but I'm like,
Because
violets?
she's
No, that's not
a
it.
hooer.
I'd let her use me as a footstool.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah, me too. Absolutely.
Yeah.
She can absolutely step all over me. But yeah, like the evils of Shinra are probably its most ham-fisted theme, and that's, kind of always been the case. That's no different than the
I mean,
original
they
and the
really went
remake.
with the shotgun evil approach, where if you do everything evil, they can't hold you accountable for any of them.
Like, you do see there
I,
are some kind of good people in there, but that ties into a bit that, again, I don't really want to. I don't know when I want to actually break it out, but it's one I keep referring to. It's spoken directly to the player by Barrett in that elevator speech.
yeah, I think it's ham-fisted, but I like how direct they are about them just being so calculatedly, purposefully evil. Like
Yeah,
I think
Yeah,
it just
don't make them have like a redeemable villain quality.
yeah,
the campiness is very nice. I
yeah.
enjoy that. I enjoy that in my villains. You either have to have, you have Sephiroth, who is potentially the more
Yes.
relatable one. Because he is the true villain, right? He is the true antagonist. Villain probably isn't even the right word. And he needs to be relatable. To have your true threat, you need to humanize them in a certain way. You need to understand disagree with their motivations, but you need to understand it. But then to have these like secondary class of villains, it's fun for them to just be goofy and silly and, you know, over the top cartoonishly evil.
Yeah, I
Because they
think
don't have motivations at
Do
that
you
point
think
other
when
than
Hojo
money.
wakes up every
It's
morning,
just
when he
it's
puts
a,
those
that's
goggles on, he's like, "Showtime, baby! Time
he's
to."
maybe the one that's different. He's still kind of cartoonishly evil, but in a truly sinister way. But the other ones, yeah, it's like they don't have personalities because it's been leached from them by, you know, corporate greed. You know, it's all about the pursuit of power and wealth accumulation, you know, and that's
Well, it's
kind
like
of
the whole
realistic.
Airbuster.
You know,
Exactly.
fucking Jeff Bezos is a cartoonish man.
Yes.
Elon
yeah.
Musk are they're cartoonish
Cartoonish.
figures, you know.
And
None. They don't have
They are not
motivations other
they are
than
not
making money.
serious people, you know.
like that's where you even see that if with like the quote unquote good people that are, you know, Shinra employees, in that like they are pure, it's shown that they're motivated and like justify what Shinra does by their ability to continue to have
Bigwigs.
money
Okay.
and
So
power.
you're bringing it up directly, and it's impressive that, you know, that you're able to read that without having gotten this far in the text, but they again are they get explicit with it. So I will read this bit out for you. This is, and we can, I guess, kind of move on, although we still have the theme of environmentalism to talk about. But this is one of my this has
I mean, that
been
the
probably
environmentalism theme is probably the most easy and straightforward
right,
one
but
to.
it's my this is my standout moment from the game, and it's in chapter 16 when you take the elevator. You overhear a Shinra employee. He's on the phone with his scared mother, who is, you know, worried about his safety, you know, because there's been, you know, another false flag attack that Shinra is blaming on Avalanche. And so people are, you know, all the normies are, you know, worried that Avalanche is going to attack again. Um, so Tifa shows compassion and doubt, lamenting how many, quote, normal people with family and friends work for Shinra, people just trying to support their loved ones as best they can. And then Barrett, in an uncharacteristically sober tone, replies, "A good man who serves a great evil is not without sin. He must recognize and accept his complicity. He must open his eyes to the truth that his corporate masters are profiting from the planet's pain. Only then can he redeem himself." And it's just again, it makes that explicit, and they handle that moment with such care and nuance that, because a lot of the times that they still fall into a problem with Barrett, and it ties back into the environmentalism theme, is a lot of his stuff still comes off and is still kind of played for laughs.
Mm-hmm.
um, where this is, you know, very serious, and this is like, you know, a reasonable doubt to have. These are real people with real material needs that need to be met, but it is the reality that, you know, corporatism, capitalism, whatever you want to call it, um, it flattens the possibility for human flourishing, that it makes us all complicit in the evil of exploitation, right? So it is not until we recognize that we are able to kind of embrace a revolutionary potential for something different. And it was one of the kind of crystallizing moments for me of why this game is so good, and just how Barrett became probably one of my favorite video game characters of all time for that one speech alone. For the rest of you guys, for what you've played, any other kind of standout moments for you in terms of its themes, its messaging?
I mean, I like we've been saying, they're pretty straightforward with it. I think, at least for us, having, coming from the backgrounds that we do and the, political mindset that we do, it's definitely right under your, it's right in front of your nose, which I think is helpful to, hopefully have other normies realize that they are these Shinra employees.
Right. Holding a
So,
mirror
I think it was well done.
yeah, holding a mirror up to them, it's like, yeah, this is fucking you moron.
Yeah, you dingus.
What about
I mean,
the plate coming
I
down,
was gonna
you know?
say the most impactful, and neither of them have gotten there.
Yeah, I'm about to get to what I think will probably be
is basically what we won't describe it in full, but I will just say that the aftermath of the plate drop is probably one of the most emotional in game. And like obviously part of it was timing for me, like right at the kickoff of a global pandemic, you know, to listen to the true sorrow and downfall of the people around
Bill
you.
Gates pandemic.
Yeah, it's definitely another standout moment for me, and it's like I've mentioned it as well that like it's yes this turning point for Cloud because of the personal relationships he's forged with the Avalanche crew, and to see them kind of perish in this thing. It was
You
for
also get to see some of the NPCs that you did side quests for and stuff
it
like
was
that.
true. Yeah, it was truly for me to seeing these random unnamed NPCs in the aftermath as you're exploring the outskirts of the slums that still remain intact, but like it's this moment where you are it's not said outright, but you can infer that it's this person who has probably lost everyone and everything. Has probably lost their all their friends, all their family, and then the person that's consoling them is probably a random stranger. That this is not somebody that they know, but it is still, it's the only bit of human connection that they can manage. But this, you're just walking by, and it's something that you could just totally miss. Um, just this random NPC just crying and breaking down to this stranger, just saying, "I wish I didn't make it out." And for me, it was just the true toll of what happened there, really kind of really sunk in. And it's not like I was ever on the side of Shinra, or I never thought that they were, I was always in it for, I was never in
Avalanche.
doubt like them, but it truly, just kind of solidifies itself that like, yeah, like, this is say a fight for freedom.
And
I mean,
And
it's like it's one of those things that they do. I mean, we were just saying in the like cartoonishly evil levels. It's like, yeah, like there have been many horrible things that governments have done, like the Philadelphia police bombing or whatever. But like nothing to the scale of what a plate drop would account like amass to as a attack on your own civilians or citizens. But like
it's one bit that they don't
it,
address, because they're focusing, and I think correctly, on the perspective of the slum residents, but they also fucking dropped the home of
yeah,
an upper sector, right? And it's proof that like being part of the middle class and buying into the
Yep.
so-called
You're
dream,
not safe.
you're not safe. You're
yeah,
just as
that
precarious as the rest of
I'm
us.
sure that Shinra put out a message that they found the Avalanche headquarters under the plate, and that the only way to guarantee
Oh
uh,
God.
eradication was a full plate drop. And maybe they pitched it that way to the people who just lost their entire sector of their neighborhood.
yeah, well, like that you're talking about. I think actually you sparked a memory of something recent, which is the game does directly address that briefly, and the Shinra people essentially justify it with what Matt just said. They essentially are like, yes, we will kill, people that matter to us, but it's worth the cost of, what this will do
Probably
to
problem.
Avalanche.
Mm-hmm.
The other thing that I think is really well done that speaks to kind of, Ben, what you were talking about with the perspective of the people of the slums is they characterize them as like they present them all pretty much morally positively, and like
Mm-hmm.
it is this community, they are all
There are some
they're
shitheads.
redeemable
Yeah.
people
Like the
ultimately,
Don.
like
Even the
they
shithead.
right and
The
like they
Don, there's some of the
deserve
dudes who like hold you up in the beginning in that
right.
like little lot.
Yeah, but I think that
But like there's always going to be a
messaging
couple shitheads.
for sure, but that messaging of like these are good people that don't deserve to be treated the way they are being treated, helps to kind of ring all of that home too.
We also, I mean, we're talking extremely on emotional topics here, but we were talking about things that hit home, and I don't think anyone here has brought up the Honeybee Inn or
I was waiting to see if somebody
Yeah.
else did, because that's all that is
Forgot about that.
I have three moments, and that is the third. So you guys have gotten that far, right? You guys have
Yeah.
I watched it in cutscenes, but that
Yeah.
was all really I had seen of it. I didn't play any.
yeah, when you've got to when you have to bimbofy Cloud to get into the Dawn to rescue Tifa, um, you know, you end up only able to do that
I can
by
only speak for myself here briefly, where anyone who's fooled by Cloud in a dress,
Yes. Yeah.
Are you kidding me? He's beautiful.
I mean, yeah, he is.
He's
yes, and
gorgeous.
he's got the shoulders of a
of
of a linebacker.
Yes, of a linebacker.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Some people do. You know,
I'm not saying they don't. I'm just
He was
saying
a
like
swimmer. He was a swimmer in his
Yeah.
youth.
he was doing the butterfly.
Built like a fucking Dorito. Got traps for days.
but
But yeah, that final bit when he gets the makeover from Andrea Rodea, the head of the Honeybee Inn, and you know it's something that could have easily kind of tilted into transphobia and
Mhm.
trans
because I
panic.
mean, even in the original game, it was more of a just like a throwaway make fun of prostitution thing more than
Not fully, because there was like I remember you had said that earlier, but as I played through it, they actually handle it decently in the original. The guy who ends up making the dress for Cloud is like does not think anything of it and is like, oh wow, I think I may have tapped into a new market, and you know this is something that like you know I want to explore and do more of. So I thought it was handled pretty well there too. But like yeah, so Andrea, as they're like finishing their dance number and Cloud emerges you know in his splendiferous glory, um
A
just sort of
Aerith is
hilarious scene.
fucking Aerith is
Mhm.
loving it
oh
too.
Yeah.
she's smitten at that point. But he gives Andrea gives this speech, or he gives this it's not really a speech, but just says to Cloud, true beauty is an expression of the heart, a thing without shame to which notions of gender don't apply. Don't ever be afraid, Cloud. And it's just like, you know, he's basically they're speaking to the player there, you know,
Yeah.
don't ever be afraid to express who you are. And it's, you know, was beautifully handled, beautifully done in a very touching moment. And I think yeah, handled what could have been, you know, kind of thorny ground in a good way. It was definitely a top
I mean,
pick.
it's also a chapter that's touching on like sex trade and
Right. Yeah, with the Don basically just getting a new bride
concubine.
Which,
every week.
you know,
Yeah.
sex work is real work, but human trafficking is not.
Mm-hmm. I mean, hey, they need a job too. They need to feed their families.
Yeah.
All right. Yeah, that's kind of all I had for my notes. I know we've probably gone more than long enough.
So
Final
I have
thoughts.
one question for you two that have finished it is with this being a trilogy, how does the ending, the conclusion of this portion feel? Does it feel complete enough, or did you kind of feel disappointed that it ends with like, okay, what happens next?
No, it's it's a sufficiently satisfying ending to the Midgar arc and what has changed going forward.
Yeah.
I mean,
Co-
and it ends with quite a climactic
yeah, there
showdown.
yeah, it is both mechanically satisfying in terms of final fights. Um, it is it is narratively satisfying regardless of your perspective, I think, on if you'd play the original or not. Because like having not played the original at the time, this felt cool. It felt good. It felt like this was a you know a turning point in the
There's a
story. This
feeling of hope at the end.
and things are opening up, but it's like there's like you know looking out into what's to come felt good and not really in a cliffhanger way. But for those who had played the game, and this is a tiny little bit of spoiling for you two who haven't finished, they make it clear that things are not going to go the way that you expected. That we
7
have
seconds.
It's like we have put it down for real that things have changed, that fate has been thwarted in some way, that this is not the story that you're used to. So for those in the
Buckle
know,
up, buckaroo.
it does end on a kind of cliffhanger of sorts, and you're just like, oh my God, what's going to happen? You know? So
7
it's,
seconds.
yeah. Will he have enough time, folks? We'll find out. And I think that'll do it for us today at Campaign Comrades, folks.
7 seconds. It's the title of Cloud's autobiography and my sex tape.
Yeah. All right. Thank you, boys, for making this a good episode. I'm glad that you're enjoying your time with the game. I have enjoyed joining your streams to watch and kind of relive it. If you want to see more of our streaming content, I've already plugged it once, but I'll plug it again. Follow us on twitch.tv/Campaign Comrades. On all the social medias at Camp Compod or Campaign Comrades. Be sure to stay tuned for more, and we will be excited to bring it to you. And I think that's all we've got so far. The rest of this month now is just like biding my time until Rebirth comes out. So
I'm playing Half-Life. I'm playing Oracle of Ages. Maybe finish a little more Final Fantasy 3. I'm playing all the old short games I can, fitting in as many into the time frame.
Yep. All right. We will see you next time. Bye-bye.
Hey.